Hello and welcome to Fit News. I am your host, Jen Shaver, and joining me today is Colleen Bush. She is a registered dietitian that specializes in functional nutrition with a focus on gut health. She is an integrative and functional nutrition credentialed practitioner from the Integrative and Functional Nutrition Academy. From her own health journey with Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis, Colleen is passionate about helping others get to the root cause of their health problems using an integrative approach and food as medicine. Colleen started her business, Colleen Bush Functional Nutrition, to be able to really be present with her clients and be there for them to get them feeling better than ever during the intervention stages and to be able to educate them for anything that they may face in the future. Colleen, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Let's chat about stress because we know that we are a society of go, 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 and that leads to a lot of stress. So, we also know that many women struggle with stress, and it is a
Mhm.
contributing factor to many health issues that
Yes.
women face. So, let's chat about some stress today and what we can do about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate
Yeah.
this. So in my practice, what I usually do is I have women and men come to me and they're people who have just been having these symptoms, and whether it be gut symptoms, I have a group program and a one-on-one. So with my group program, it's really gut focused.
Mhm.
One-on-one, I'm kind of all over the place. But a lot of times I have people coming to me with really bad digestive issues or fatigue, a lot of hormone imbalances. And the way that we address these is we want to get to the root cause of what's going on. And a lot of factors that we need to also focus on is stress. There's a few different stressors that we're talking about when we talk about stress in this capacity. Emotional stress, so just kind of how we're feeling all the time.
Mhm.
Physical stress, and that could kind of be like underfueling, which I find often.
Right.
A lot of times people are coming to me and I can't lose weight. I'm having these digestive symptoms, and really we're putting stress on our body because we're not eating enough foods.
Yeah.
So the physical type, and that could also be if we're not sleeping well. So that's another stressor. It's all kind of in this stress bucket. And
Right.
then another one is exercise. So if we're having, I often refer to our stress bucket. And
Mhm.
we kind of have to just be able to personally assess what's going on in our lives.
Mhm.
And if our stress bucket is really high, we need to be kind of like taken out some other areas. And then the last part of the stress bucket is environmental factors.
Mhm.
So we're kind of taking a look at all the directions at the stress that's coming into our lives.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact is that, there are some stressors that we can control, right? And then there's others that we don't really have any control over, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn to manage those.
Absolutely. So stress resilience is one of the things that I like to kind of teach in our program,
Mhm.
because again, some of the stress we do have control over. So
Right,
what we're eating, how we're sleeping, most of the time we can control that stuff.
right, yeah,
Not always, but a lot of the emotional things, like life happens. I say that so many times.
yeah,
And so just being able to have that stress resilience. And
mhm,
so we work on that a lot in my program as well, is kind of building that stress resilience. So when life happens and these stressful moments, they're going to happen. That's life.
right,
Our bodies can kind of work through that and
mhm,
not hurt our bodies. Because what we're often finding, so those acute stressors, that's life, that's normal. We need
mhm,
to try to get out of the chronic stressed state that we're in now, which
mhm,
is kind of, I feel like we almost consider that like a medal at this point. Like if we're like stressed and we're
right,
going all the time, we think that we're doing a great job. And I'm very guilty of that.
yeah,
I think most of my health issues came when I was doing everything and I was just like, I'm doing it. But
yeah,
really inside, I was really hurting myself.
right, right, and I don't think we realize, we might not understand the effects that stress does have on our body in many different areas.
Absolutely. So kind of going I'll get a little bit sciencey really quick.
Yeah.
I won't go too deep. But so when we're talking about our nervous system, so our autonomic nervous system. So what that is, it's like our involuntary actions of our body. So our breathing. So we're not actually thinking about breathing. Our body is just doing that. So then to break that system down 2 more times, we have our sympathetic state. And then we have our parasympathetic state. So our sympathetic state is that fight or flight. So that's like our acute stressor. It's really important. Our bodies are amazing. I feel like I like to say this as well. They're very smart. And that's like our protective mechanism. So we have that fight or flight. So we're like, oh my gosh, a car is coming at me. I need to get out of the way. So our bodies will be able to handle that. Then the other is the parasympathetic state, is the rest and digest phase. And that's where we get that stress resilience, that we need to kind of go back to that. Once the car leaves, we need to be able to get out of that fight or flight and put ourselves back into the rest and digest stage. So I feel like what often happens is we're in this chronic fight or flight mode. And I feel like that's where a lot of people, the symptoms are coming to me. They're immune, because I feel like when we're in this fight or flight, our immune system is not working. Our metabolism is not working. Our thyroid is not working, because we're not doing the basics of our general, like our repair and maintenance of our body, because our body is in this chronic fight or flight. So I feel like we need to be able to bring it back. And that's kind of where the gut is also really affected with this. So what science and research has shown is that when we're in this chronic fight or flight stage, the stress can alter our gut composition, the function, and the metabolic activity of the gut microbiome. So it's not just stress is affecting my gut and I'm not sure how. It's actually changing your gut microbiome. You're not able to digest the food as well. And so your symptoms are real. These things are actually happening in your body.
Right. So I would say, if there is someone out there that thinks that they've been doing all the things, right? They've been exercising, they've been getting the sleep, they've been doing, but they're still, gosh, I still just don't feel good. I'm still having trouble losing weight. Looking into their gut health is probably a good idea, but also looking into the way that they are managing stress, because that is ultimately
absolutely it could be one of the root causes of what's going on. We're, again, like you said, you're doing all the right things. We're eating everything that it says I should be eating for these symptoms, and we're still just not feeling that well. But I feel like when we're in that chronic tense state, it's literally changing the gut microbiome. And so that's kind of one of the things that we really like to work on, is that stress resilience, to try to get us back when there's no danger, when our body knows it's safe, to get back into the rest and digest phase.
Right. And, we might have become so accustomed to living in that fight or flight phase, right? I mean, where we're just so used to it, if you will.
Absolutely. Go. Even like a busy schedule, I feel like puts us in that, because we're constantly rushing. That's just kind of, and like I said, I feel like that at this point, it's kind of like we get a medal or a badge of honor for doing all of the things. And I felt like, for me personally, when I was like, so all my kids were at home, and I was stay-at-home mom at this point, and I just felt like I was drowning, but my kids were so happy. And I was just like, I'm doing it. Like I'm the best mom, because I felt like that's like kind of what I should be doing at that point.
Yeah. What are some things then that we can start to work on towards getting out of that fight or flight stage? That chronic stress cycle that it doesn't end, it just keeps going.
It doesn't end, because something is going to keep on coming.
Happen. We have to break it.
Yes, we do. And so some of the things that we can really work on, because I feel like what we don't want to do is add to our list of to-dos to work on stress management. I feel like let's add another thing on it and then be stressed because we don't have time for it. So some of the things that we could do to kind of help this stress resilience, is what we'll call, is making sure we're eating enough. So I feel like that's just like, we're going to be eating every day. So kind of just being mindful when we're eating, making sure we're eating enough. And one of our stressors is not under eating. Blood sugar balance. So one of the things when we're in that fight or flight mode, our blood sugar is rising, our blood pressure is rising. And I often actually refer to my oldest daughter a lot. So she has type 1 diabetes. And so I follow her blood sugar every 5 minutes. And so it's really interesting when she's in a stressful situation. So a couple of weeks ago, she had to go to the principal's office. That's never happened before. And me and my husband are watching her follow app, and her number is just going high because that's her body's like physiological symptoms of like I'm freaking out and I'm going to try to protect. So it's just interesting.
But isn't that interesting how that really
so
works though, the science
and that's
behind it.
Our bodies are very amazing. It's trying to protect us, but obviously trying to making sure we get back down once we know that we're not going to get in trouble in the principal's office is like the goal. So blood sugar imbalance. So what we can really focus on is fat, protein, eating those things in our meals to try to help our bodies. Our bodies know what to do, but if we can help them, that's going to help. So making sure our breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's a well-rounded meal. So adding that fat, that healthy fat, I'll say, and protein to keep that blood sugar balance. Sleep. So another thing that we can really work on, this is all helping that stress resilience, our body being able to fight that. So making sure we're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. Movement, trying to make sure that we're moving our bodies, knowing our stress bucket. So if we're like pretty good, making sure that we're working out, because that's just good for our body, our mind, and everything. If we're like losing it and we're just in that fight or flight, maybe doing some walking or something like that, not adding to the stress, but that's all helping.
Right. Yeah. And that will all help to balance out get the gut back in order,
it is.
correct?
I feel like it's all that circle. I feel like we're going to hit everything from that holistic approach. We're looking at lifestyle, mindset, because literally all of that is helping our gut. So these are the things that we like to work on before we really dig deep into gut, like what's going on, more of a targeted situation in the gut. If we don't get our stress resilience in check before we really start working on other more personalized things, we're going to hit a wall with our progress in our health journey. Like I said, that stress is literally changing the microbiome and it's altering the functions of what's going on. So if we know what's going on and we're targeting it as we should, but we're still having that chronic stress, we're basically fighting an uphill battle and we're not going to win. We'll get some symptom relief, but we're not going to get to where we want to go. So that's why it's really important to focus on this stress resilience before we get into other things. It's really, really important. A couple other food things that we could do. Because with our stress resilience, I'll talk a lot about minerals. And so some of the minerals that we're talking about is potassium, sodium, magnesium. When we're under a lot of stress, our body is running through these minerals. And so then we're going to be depleted in those. And as I feel like a lot of us know, minerals run our body. So if we're chronic stress, our minerals are low and we're not really repleting those, then we're even having more symptoms of just these unpleasant things that we're like, what is going on? Like, I don't have, let's say, a said disease, or I don't have something going on, a syndrome, but I just feel terrible. And it's because of this stress that's just like kind of running rampant through our body. So a couple of easy ways that I say that we could try to add without testing. You can always do mineral testing, but if we're just kind of like, I'm stressed, what can I add to my diet without doing that extra step? Liver it's a really mineral dense food. Shellfish, whole food, vitamin C is a really good food that we could add in. Root vegetables. I'll often say when we're cooking, making sure we're using real salt. And so a lot of the salt on the market these days, they take the minerals out. But so there's a couple brands that have all the minerals added. So when you're cooking, using that. So a couple of the brands, it's Redmond's salt and Celtic sea salt. They
Okay.
have all the minerals still in it. So when you're cooking, use that
Okay.
on your foods, make it taste yummy and get those minerals back in.
Yeah. And I feel
And
like
so
so
I
many
feel like
people are afraid of the salt though, right?
it is. And I feel like that's that science constantly changing.
Yeah.
I feel like we used to be scared of salt and stay away
Yeah.
from salt. And
Yeah.
really, if our minerals are depleted, it's actually really helpful for our bodies.
Right. Right.
So I feel
And
like
it's
that's
using
just
it in a smart way, right? It's not, we're not
exactly.
talking like
We're
McDonald's
don't
salt on fries.
exactly. Yes, that salt probably is never going to be good for you.
Right.
But if you're using salt at home, but
Right.
that's actually going to really, you're going to find a lot of help from that. And again, probably not the whole, like not handfuls, but using it sparingly, I guess.
Right.
But it is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And then so all of those things, I feel like we're doing those things anyways. We're eating, we're sleeping. So we're not really adding to our workload at that point, because
Right.
I do feel like if I give you a list of breath work and meditation and we're really busy, that's going to be hard. But so those steps at the beginning, that's really helpful. And then once we're making sure we're eating enough and making sure that our blood sugar is balanced and we're sleeping and we're moving, and we're kind of taking note of the minerals, then that's maybe we could try to do something to get into that rest and digest. It's just doing something fun, I mean, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes of meditation, which that's super helpful and beneficial, but that's not for everyone. And that's going to stress a lot of people out, putting that on a to-do list.
Yeah.
So reading, coloring, going for a walk, these are all things that are really going to be helpful too, with putting us back into that rest and digest phase.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's touch on magnesium, because we do know that a lot of people are deficient in magnesium.
Yes.
And that can also lead to difficulty with sleep. And then
Yes.
if we're having trouble sleeping, right, we're just continuing this cycle
Oh,
that
yes,
we
it's
don't want
just
to
like
be in.
nonstop
So,
cycle.
so
Yes. So
let's
a
talk
lot of
about
times,
magnesium a little
yeah.
bit.
So, and if you have not been using minerals or working on minerals with magnesium, one of the things that I like to say first is trying a topical. Because if you start taking a magnesium supplement and your potassium is low, you might actually feel worse with that.
Oh, wow.
So if we're going to start doing magnesium supplements, there's like trace mineral oil or putting Epsom salt baths. These are all things that are going to help us sleep better, just make us feel better in general. And they're really, and most of the population is probably depleted in their magnesium stores. I think I deal with a lot of people in going to the bathroom, and it is a hard thing. You wouldn't believe how many people struggle with that. And one of the things is, it's just, again, our minerals, and it's that chronic stressed state. A lot of people are depleted. And so what we could start with is that topical oil or an Epsom salt bath. And once you kind of get that, throw in some root vegetables to get some of our potassium up too, bananas. And then you can start doing a magnesium supplement at night, because that, again, that is going to help also with your sleep. So.
Yeah.
And I feel there's so many different magnesium brands out there and different forms. So if we're going to be talking about the ones that are helping us sleep, we're thinking of like a magnesium glycinate is the one that comes to mind right away. So there's just so many different forms of it, but that's typically the one that is going to help us sleep at night.
Right. And that one is a little easier on the stomach as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is something to consider if you do decide that you need a supplement, that some of the different forms of magnesium can be a little harsher.
Yeah. Magnesium citrate is one of the ones that is kind of used to stimulate bowel movements. So if we're not having issues with that, maybe stay away from that. But if you are finding yourself stressed and struggling to go to the bathroom and all the things that almost everyone is feeling now, magnesium citrate is a better one to try. But I would probably suggest doing a couple Epsom salt baths or some of the oil first, and then moving into that, just to make sure that your body's able to tolerate it.
Right. And like you said, that magnesium or the Epsom salt bath is a great way to wind down at the end of the day. It's a great bedtime, a nighttime routine, right?
Oh,
to add in instead of scrolling on your phone, which
which is adding to our stress. I feel everything that we're finding on social media these days, I feel like it just it's just adding to that bucket. And I
Right.
feel like once our bucket is full and overflowing, that's when we have our issues. I feel like if
Right.
we can kind of manage and kind of just assess our own bodies, and
Hmm.
we know that tipping point for us.
Right.
So I feel like, but yes, that like a Epsom salt bath. And again, that's not sitting meditating forever. It's just enjoying
Right.
that's a perfect thing to help in like a stress resilience type of
Right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, Colleen?
Um, Not really. I feel like I feel like it's often put into this bucket of bad. And I
Right.
feel like the good thing to know is it's not. It's actually a really important protective mechanism for our bodies. And so I feel like we can't just throw shade on it the whole time, because
Right.
that's
No,
not fair.
there's good stress and bad stress, right?
There is good stress and bad stress, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of making sure that we're prioritizing that stress resilience, working on that
Mhm.
stress resilience so we can
Yeah.
go back and forth, because that's what we're
Yeah.
supposed to be able to do. When we're in
Right.
fear or if we're feeling unsafe, going into the fight or flight is really important. But then
Hmm.
just making sure that we can go back to the rest and digest. And it's
Right.
by working on those stress resilience things
Hmm.
that we kind of already touched
Right.
on. So
Right.
kind of just trying to get some
Which we
of it
can work
every day.
into our day without adding
That
additional
is the hope. That
stress.
is the goal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because we don't want to add more
Yeah.
stress to when we're trying to fight
To the
or
stress.
work on our stress resilience. And
Okay.
that's where I feel like it all gets very confusing, and it's hard
Hmm.
because
Right.
it's when we know what we're doing, we're eating all the right foods, we're doing
Yeah.
meditation, but it's stressful to do all of that stuff as
Right.
well when we're so busy. So
Hmm.
I think just making sure that you're very um, I think you need to just understand where you're at, because everyone
Hmm.
is also different.
Right.
And giving yourself a break, I think,
Yeah.
is really important. And I think the last thing to say is that resting, like, so maybe not doing something is actually really helping your body, which I think is
Yeah.
like against all of the norms right now. Like,
Right.
I feel like you're often considered lazy, or
Hmm.
when you just are like, I'm just going to sit here and do
Right.
nothing for 10-15 minutes,
Right.
but really that's actually probably more helpful than a 20-minute high intensity workout if we're really stressed.
Right.
So
Right.
I feel like
Exactly. I
kind of
mean,
just knowing where we're at.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like your cell phone, right? You have to plug it in and recharge it. So in order
Exactly.
for
And
it to continue to work,
absolutely,
give it a
exactly. Because
break and let it
yes.
charge.
And
So the
again, our
body,
bodies are really, really smart, and they're
yeah,
trying to help us, but we're just kind of putting a lot of we're making them work really, really hard right now. And I think
yeah,
it's showing with a lot of symptoms that people are having
right.
more now than ever, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's
Right.
these nagging symptoms that are really kind of affecting our quality of life, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Um, but again, it's not something that's maybe coming up in conventional labs. So it's that in between that we're kind of talking about right now that we
Yeah.
can really do a lot of work on to kind of reverse it.
Yeah. Great. And Colleen, if our listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
Yes, and so I'm on Instagram. My website is actually I'm creating it right now, so
Okay.
maybe I can let you know
Mm-hmm.
shortly my
Mm-hmm.
website. But
Yeah.
so on Instagram right now, and so it's
Okay.
Colleen Bush _RDN.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge today, Colleen, about gut health and stress. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us here on Fit News today. We will catch you next time.